that game got so spicy we needed a break after game 1, but we're ready for game 2 now between Tempo Storm and Team Freedom. It was back and forth, it was close, then Freedom kind of got angry, started winning some fights, and then all of a sudden they got really angry and got 2 bosses and then just decided to win the game.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me going into game 2 that I'm looking at is some of the decision making from Tempo Storm to get overly aggressive in certain areas. I'm wondering, was that, how much of that is the, today factor, and how much was that a true decision-making element? I don't know. If we see it continue as a trend, I do feel like it more of a today factor than anything. Just like even Cattle willing to risk that kind of all in, right? At that moment, maybe not so much, but before that, the aggression they were willing to say and like how much they committed to that secondary tribute, it just felt very not Tempo Storm.
Well, it's always very fun to see Tempo take on Team Freedom, because whereas some other teams are just trying to focus on the macro game because they're so respectful of the team fighting of Freedom, it's always fun to see that Tempo Storm is willing to say, no, we can hang with them in team fighting, and we'll see if that nuts them a game, being willing to do that. We're going on to Tomb of the Spider Queen for game 2. Chosen again by Tempo Storm, so they have given up first pick for the Battleground choice.
For the Battleground choice there, that is a unique perspective considering what we were talking about before. On Tempo Storm is the team who, if anybody has anything to hide, that they're willing to go in that direction rather than going first pick, letting Team Freedom essentially choose the map, not giving any information, and then drafting whatever they want. Tempo is essentially, it could be misinformation, but they're giving in some information in terms of priority, willing to go into the tomb.
This is the first time that Tempo Storm have chosen tomb in all of part 2, so we don't really know.
I'm assuming this is just a, hey, look it, we don't really like tomb, but we're going to act like it today. But it just feels like if that was your thought process, wouldn't you have just done that with just take first pick and go whatever map Freedom?
Maybe. Maybe we're about to get
the double juke mind game.
Such a great draft. I can't even.
The Zod? That's got to be Psalm, right?
The Zod.
Psalm has got to be the Zod.
Or wait, I think Psalm.
Something about it just
seems Psalm-like.
He's got the flavor, that Psalm would be like out of all the mages. He doesn't play every mage in the book, but it seems like he would be the one within that. Huge playmaking capabilities, and that typically seems like what
right up Psalm's alley.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, does a hero does it kill things? Because if so, yeah, I want to play it. Interesting ban. Not common to see a first ban Maltho for Freedom. Does that mean they're going to first pick the Vala?
I think they'll still first pick ETC. Oh, well, not now.
Yeah, so this is the reason I say the Vala, and I know that seems kind of weird, is because that indicates you want Lucio, but you want Lucio in a double support. And if you have double support, you want Vala. So Vala comes before all else. They disagree. They're going to take the Rhaegar over the opportunity to go into Vala, but it does indicate, again, that double supporting. This should incentivize. No, it shouldn't incentivize. I was going to say a Lucio, but that is not true anymore with the Malthael bound out. I'm really curious already for Freedom. I know it's only 3 moves deep, but this might be a little bit wild here. On the side of Tempo,
take Vala for yourself.
What about Zod?
Well, I mean, always.
Always take him. If not, I don't know. I'm going to go with less what Tempo Storm does in the past and more what I'd like to see. So, I mean, with Rhaegar taken, I don't think you're going to neglect having all the supports unless you don't think that your composition needs a specific type of supporting. So then I would probably go with like an Uther Genji if I'm going to go offensive. If I'm not going in the offensive route, play more wave clear, safer in that avenue, and you know you're going to get that through Rhaegar. So then I got to go Genji, something hyphy. If this is passive wave clear, I feel like it's counterintuitive.
Vala. They do take the Vala.
Yeah, it's a bit more on the double support avenue than either direction I was putting it, but it's still a, meta strategy.
And if that's a deny from Nasmus, it's a deny from the double support of Team Freedom. So Freedom was wanting to go that route. Now it's not with the ideal ranged assassin having Vala.
But it could be with the ideal hybrid difference that we haven't seen North America display yet, but I think is essentially a strategic shift. Whenever you bait your opponent into taking it, then you go, wait a minute, look, in this situation you can go Ariel Lunara. And then you have the Ariel still with the double that everybody's been so afraid of, but then you have the Lunara battery aspect, and more importantly, you still have a little bit of threat in the front line. It's an older note to the original version of double support, but one that I don't see a reason as to why it would fail. You can transition to the Leo late into the back half of the draft, and we know what, I mean, new Leo, he's one scary dude.
Apparently he can top damage charts.
He can do a little bit of everything. So they go with the Ariel still, but then the Greymane instead. So then do we see them still pick up the late Lunara, or is in fact a battery list? Because also with new Ariel, you don't need to be as on top of your battery target, considering What is the level 7 that I'm looking for? I don't remember the name. The
Energized
auto attack.
Cord.
Energized Cord. Such a unique talent.
I definitely think that Greymane is the battery in this situation.
Okay.
And then we'll see a Cure hero of some capacity.
Yeah.
Either the double warrior or potentially more of a melee assassin type play, but then Zugrick having his warrior.
And since the Morales was banned out, and there's already been double support picked up by Team Freedom, now the double support is heavily decentralized for Tempo Storm unless they're going to go into a less common one. And all those others, other than the Lucio here, I don't see any other direction. So I assume that we're going to get like a Lucio Arthas, but that is kind of awkward because Arthas plays into both compositions. And I do think that if you're going to pick the Lucio in this type of situation, you really set yourself back, but Tempo disagrees. They're not committing to this double support, at least not yet. Instead, going Dahaka and Garrosh.
Ooh. Should be the first time we're seeing Fury play Garrosh. I know he was really excited to play him when he was announced, and then saddened because it wouldn't have been his hero, because at the time Cattle was still playing the primary warrior. Well, I'm pumped for that.
I actually hope that last pick is more of the Malfurion now, considering those last two picks. It synergizes better with it. And also that trickle in healing onto Garrosh, even though Lucio can provide that too, mathematically is going to give him a lot of effective health. You have the synergy onto the flip into a root, and more importantly, you have a healing debuff opportunity into a double support of Freedom.
You also have a Twilight Dream follow-up out of Crystal Aegis, and I was thinking about you can do the same sort of type thing with Stukov with Lurking Arm underneath Crystal Aegis, so I was wondering if maybe Stukov would be along the same lines there. But before we get to that, Johanna Chromie.
Scary composition for Freedom. A lot of anti-siege, a lot of kill potential, and honestly a very, very, very ridiculous amount of wave clear. Between JoJo, Ario, Greymane, and Rhaegar, all of those on top of one another, I'm expecting Johanna to even spec more into the wave clear at level 4. There it is! Yay! We got the Zod! And it, in fact, will be Psalm. As if all goes according to plan here, I think that's the Psalm. I'm excited here. The Zod versus the Chromie. Chromie should be able to outrange Zod pretty effectively until Glacial Spike comes online, but even then she has the timeout, which, I mean, it hurts really bad when you end up using all your spells and not effectively killing her. And because you have no hard crowd control after the snare, it's easy to time out the large burst.
Important to note in this Chromie versus Kel'Thuzad, we are not on the Kel'Thuzad balance patch, which means Kel'Thuzad is scarier. And Chromie takes 80 stacks instead of 60 to finish and get the echo of your Sandblast. So there we have it. Kel'Thuzad. Psalm is playing Kel'Thuzad. I cannot wait for this.
I'm excited. I don't even have anything to say. I'm just ready to get in this as soon as possible. I want to see me some Zod. Some of the biggest thing here is going to be using Zod as a form of sieging with the Webweaver phase. That is, again, the biggest element that I do think if Zod has Kel'Thuzad has a specific element that you're going to be, what does he provide? It's his single target burst that he can provide through his amazing CC chain, and then it's got to be the 4-second chain onto any structure, and then you just can't stand around it. And if you do, you should be within lethal. He is essentially, I mean, a better Stitches, but it's within a smaller time frame, right? So like you can debatably say it's worse than Stitches because it's not eternal, it's only within a 4-second time period, but you just don't want him sieging into you, ever.
No, because you can use the structures the way that you can. We are ready for game 2 with Kel'Thuzad versus Chromie. Mage Wars begin right now on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
You know, I've never really thought about it, but I've never even seen the interaction, honestly. What if you throw up a chain, but then I Molten Core it? Do you still keep the chain on top of me as I've consumed it? I guess you couldn't,
You're talking about a chain on a fort and then you Molten Core the fort?
Yeah, and then try and Molten Core that hybrid. I don't know. I was just trying to think of, is there any weird interaction that you can get to rip through? But on the Zod, we do see the vulnerability here at level 1, a little bit different than what we saw at a Tiger JK, reducing the armor by 15 if you end up hitting 2 targets, as long as you get past your 30 Blight. Which, let's be real here, focusing on the Blight is really the core of Kel'Thuzad early game.
It is the name of the game.
You really want to focus on making sure you always have him in a lane where your opponent at least has 2 people. Having one is, I mean, genuinely setting you behind 2-fold in terms of time and productivity within the game.
For Nasmus, it's doing that. Hitting heroes with Sandblast, trying to get multiple heroes in a row so that it counts for additional stacks. Because we saw the 2 hits, he's sitting at 3 already. There's the first toss of the game. Iron Skin follow-up 2. There's going to be a pull back in.
Drag back in.
No
Still
Iron
no flip
Iron
yet.
Skin this time.
Zugrug, the healing is there between the double support of Team Freedom. Nasmus throws out enough damage that the members of Team Freedom pull far ahead. Even Greymane making the transition before anybody on Tempo Storm can make their way out.
Righteous Smash pickup for Zugrug means that we are almost certainly going back into Eternal Retaliation. Full wave clear, full time for Johanna. Kira gets thrown. Kira Rhaegar is strange. It's pulled back in, and with the root, the damage of Frost Nova. First blood taken by Som.
Yeah, very well done there with the chain system. He's already managed to get 3 within the first 2 waves. That's very good. That's what you should be aiming for. Every time there's a clash, just chain, and we'll see if he gets this up on top. It should be a pretty easy one. Got 2 more. Very well done. Stack on stack here for Solom. It cost him his life. Debatably worth. Dansky gets pulled in.
It kind of is. Does seem like that's the thing, is often you go in, you get a bunch of stacks, and then you end up dying at some point from the stacks, just because you're so focused on trying to stack up light as fast as you can. But 6 stacks, not bad.
Now that we're at rounding level 4, and we're on a small globe map, the biggest thing has got to be, what do we see at level 4? Do we see the survivability off the shielding at the chains of 4, or instead go with the phylactery off the globes, because it is a high globe map? I'm expecting probably phylactery because of the map.
I think so too.
But again, I do think there is a world where phylactery, because even though it does have the spell vamp and the healing, it is not near the same amount of survivability that you get from those shields. Chain 1, chain 2, nice snare. Not enough cross healing, and that's collusion out.
Collusion's out, drag comes in, there's the pull, doesn't hit Dansky, but it doesn't matter. Dansky will go down 2. Team Freedom cannot keep their members alive.
He doesn't. He still goes with the armor at level 4. Second time in a row, armor of the Archlich, and that was, without a doubt, not what I expect to go into the Kel'Thuzad twice in a row now. So is this the standard here for North America? Going for the bonus armor. Just because the Greymane dive, that is enough to be able to move in that direction.
Yeah, it's not just the armor. You get the slow on nearby enemies too. So it gives you some more escape for a hero that doesn't really have much of anything unless you can hit your spike and chain someone back in. But Fury is out of control. I can't. These are nuts.
He is hitting so many flips here, and it's why they're a full level ahead. I mean, 6-1 in kills, and that's not something you normally say about, I mean, Freedom in the early game, losing and struggling like this, but more importantly, Tempo Storm pulling ahead this dominantly, and it's not even through macro. It's just they look at you, and you're just dead so far. And
Tempo Storm wants to be building up Kel'Thuzad, too. This is the time where you would think for Team Freedom they would want to be trying to get ahead in the game, and because the incredible synergy of Garrosh, of Fury, along with the Dahaka or the Kel'Thuzad or the Uther, they are running this early game. They've got the first Web Weavers descending. They should be able to do a lot with that, given that the sieging potential of Kel'Thuzad.
4-man collapse, or 2-man collapse up into mid. See how Freedom is responding to bottom lane? This is what we were talking about in the last series and the few through North America. There's been an overemphasis towards clearing out the bottom lane than any of the others for a defensive strategy, but it seems like they disagree. They're going to go back to the standard. They're spawning here towards middle, while Tempo splits out with a 2-1-2. So Tempo's still committing to this unique laning situation over the first Web Weaver phase, but not Freedom. They're more responsive here, even perfectly matching the 2-1-2.
This is going to be cleared out in the top, Nasmus and Cure. Cure can't go in as much as he'd like. He has 22 gems, and he has already been picked off once with the picks of Tempo Storm, and Freedom need to squelch that quickly. They cannot fall victim to any more of these picks from Tempo Storm because they are already massively behind on Tomb.
And I don't mean to set off any alarms here, but beyond Zugra going down and the disadvantage and everything of the like, let's just go that this is 4 minutes and 30 seconds into a professional match, and Kel'Thuzad is already halfway through his Blight stacks.
Yep, he has the cooldown reduction now. Glacial Spikes is here. That's going to help him a lot with building up the rest of those stacks.
And now Kel'Thuzad is suddenly not a weakness for the team. I feel like the rate at which they managed to get this is far above what they should be successful with here in Tempo Storm. He's got to be very thankful for this Kel'Thuzad pick, and I feel like they're going to be those one-shot dreams that we hear about so frequently here, the myth. I feel like it's not going to be so myth. It will be in action here today with Psalm throwing out the chains.
Yeah, Kira stays a good distance away from the fort, trying to make sure that he doesn't give the pull to it and take extra damage from that. But losing Chromie in the top two. Oh, right back to the spike. Follow-up damage is good.
Good pull. Cure has 26 gems. Collusion had the AoE healing though, so they're going to be just fine. Chain attempt missing there, but you see the CDR value. That was way faster than the last sequence of chains that we've been able to see, and that can get even worse at 13. If you end up speccing into the 4-second CDR after connecting 2 chains, it's pretty much chains on chains on chains. You could say you're 2 chains, maybe 3 chains. No, not the hip-hop reference? You're not feeling it today? All right. Somebody had to say it.
I was just waiting for you to say that. I've been waiting for days.
For the 2 chains?
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
I'm honestly embarrassed I fell for the trap.
Someone mentioned it on Twitter
Did they?
yesterday, and I was like, that's got to be Dreads.
Yeah.
If anybody gets to use that reference,
it's got to be the hip-hop nerd. Sorry, boys.
Talking about Chromie did go down earlier and drop a lot of gems that Team Freedom weren't able to turn in. She's sitting at 26 stacks of her Sandblast. So she's been hitting these pretty consistently. You can see they're starting to chunk down Fury even. But it's a waiting game for Team Freedom. They are massively behind Tempo Storm, which means Tempo Storm kind of just gets to take out whatever structures they want with these heroics, and then they're going to be in a good place to get a turn in after this. Team Freedom, it's a uphill battle the entire rest of the way for this game, but it starts with heroic abilities and winning a team fight.
Still about 12 stacks away. Once you get to post 10, immediately you have to keep track of all the blight for Kel'Thuzad, because if you are not keeping track of it, that 75% bonus damage spike is suddenly what is going to be an acceptable heroic to wear there with his, what is it, Shadow Fissure? You are suddenly going from like, I can handle this, to a, oh my goodness, do not touch this circle or we are going to lose this fight. And so the fact that he is already about 66% of the way through is very intimidating here. Cure, lucky to be able to get out of that range.
10 finally here. A breath of fresh air for Team Freedom as they have heroics. Chromie's had hers for a little while now, but it's the rest of the team joining. We've got full-on support with Crucial Aegis and Ancestral Healing. And even though Team Freedom were moving out into position to turn in, it's Tempo Storm with the second turn in of the game.
Sidewall, chain number 1, pulling Zugrug back. Gotta constantly avoid those at all costs here. And a part of that, remember we were talking about when can you take care of your own sidewalls? Kel'Thuzad, another hero where it's like,
example.
I wish I could kill my own sidewalls, giving him something to be able to prep that in and not force that glacial spike use. It's a 30-second cooldown, so, you know, it's pretty easy to deal with, but look at that. Zugrug drop back. Shadow Fissure forces an Aegis. There's the Glacial Spike. Another chain up in a couple seconds. The healing Divine Storm is enough to lock down Chromie.
Chromie, no timeout yet, but even with that, she had her hands off the keyboard for quite a while in that. Zugger gets tossed back to the team, to the Web Weaver, to death. And with those 2 kills, Tempo Storm can take out the top fort.
Game number 1 going over to Team Freedom, and it just one moment where it kind of got out of control for them to be able to recover. And game number 2, very different story. Tempo Storm is just absolutely dominating them. Just anytime it seems like Freedom even walks up to a lane, it's just here's a chain, here's a couple of crowd control. If you manage to survive, there's that timeout. The first one, you know that Fury's there with the pull right on back.
What's great for Tempo Storm here is in showing that they can beat a world-class team like Team Freedom with this Kel'Thuzad play out of Psalm. It will make future series, and for that I'm talking about the playoffs.
Scary.
A lot of people have to question now, do we have to ban this versus them? Do they at least have to give that kind of thought process to that? And Tempo Storm, you know, not afraid to show that they have this strong play around this. This is
Aegis?
just absolutely obliterating Freedom.
Oh man, that taunt one shot after that Shadow Fissure, but Team Freedom, they're actually standing a chance in this fight. The pull in seals the deal on Zugrug, but Dansky and friends, they have a little bit of HP as Nazbis. You see him throwing out those spells. He had the slowing sands for the peel. It's enough to deter Tempo Storm from taking this boss, at least for now. But Team Freedom, they've got to find a way to capitalize on this death onto the Kel'Thuzad. They still have 70 gems. We're yet to see them get a Web Weaver phase of their own.
It stops the boss, but it's not doing too much from that too, because they still lost kills and they couldn't get out in a place to get a turn in. They have the gems necessary, and they're going to start working on getting their bruisers so that at least they'll have a lane push somewhere. But because all the lanes were so pushed in Tempo Storm's advantage, I mean, they've almost lost all of their forts. There's only that sliver of health in the bottom lane, and Dahaka will make quick work of that now that he's down there.
At 13, Psalm, rather than moving into the CDR, he went with Chains of Ice, focusing on getting that 70% slow. And that's a 70% slow. It is absolutely huge and devastating. Now, it's just it seems like Kel'Thuzad can just chain CC after CC. Nasmus in a bad spot. Detainment Strike saves his life. Condemn pulling in Cattle maybe a bit closer than he would like, but Zugrug, he's body blocking. He'll wear that drag.
He's the one who gets the drag, but the chains are there too. Catches Ariel, Divine Storm before you can even get hit by the Shadow Fisher.
Nice.
Yikes.
I love Zazad, dude. He just goes and he's like, here's my spells and your gonzo. And now the Blight stacks have been completed after that last combo. It actually was 27 when he hit that chain, 29, the double W. That was the thing that gave him the 30, and immediately that Shadow Fisher looked completely different spell. Hate to warn you about this, Gilly. I don't know if you've looked recently. That is actually a global, and it's 15 seconds long.
I know that. You know what else happens at level 20 when you get Might of the Scourge? If you get hit by it, it resets the cooldown. So where we saw Dansky was trying to turn in and got hit by that, you can't do that at 20.
Kel'Thuzad, beast of his own here, but so does so is Tempo Storm. Webweaver phase #1 for Team Freedom. But
it's not just Kel'Thuzad. They are all playing around it like they have been practicing with this.
And the composition also with the 3 drags, I mean, really, it's you survive the first one, you aren't going to survive the second one, and let's just say by happenstance, you miracle made that go down. They just used the third, and every single time that is net a kill over towards Tempo Storm, and the Ancestral Healing double support. It's just not really enough. Aegis just seems to buy time, and that is not what Freedom needs. They need HP.
Yeah, and you generally think, oh, a nice, safe warrior. Who can we get? Someone who has their own cleanse. Oh, let's get Johanna. She's got Iron Skin. Johanna has died a whole bunch in this series just because it is that thought process that Johanna should be able to stay alive and not have to deal with that. But Johanna has died 5 times just because she can't deal with this with so many different pulls and control from Tempo Storm.
Freedom was able to dodge that last combo, which has kept them alive for a bit longer here, and Cattle just clearing out these top Webweaver phase. You see how many gems he has. A lot of Tempo Storm has quite a few gems, enough for a turn-in, and with the 3-level lead, a Webweaver phase this late into the game, and no fort standing on the side of Team Freedom. Tempo Storm, I'm not going to say they will end the game, but they are in a situation where they could very quickly here.
We're definitely looking at keeps.
It would be an absolute disappointment here for their composition with the Kel'Thuzad and the power spike they have to not get a keep with this Webweaver phase. And if Sultan does what he does best here, hits the chain, hits the snare, and the Shadow Fissure, I feel like if 2 members of Team Freedom die, Tempo may just look to end the game.
A time trap, watching to see if Fury sneaks his way into the secret hallway. Chain.
That was Iron Skin already. So let's see, which sidewall do we see Psalm, or which structure do we see Psalm attached to? There we go, turret. Not going to get too aggressive there, unable to connect.
There is no cooldown reduction for Iron Skin either. No Crusade marches on. Here comes the Webweaver, the chain. Crystal Aegis and Iron Skin.
Pull immediately after, the flip on a Zugrug, Divine Storm. And that is 1 dead Johanna. It just, nobody is safe here from the grasp of Tempo Storm. Not even this middle keep, as it is without a doubt going to drop. First keep of the game here, 14 minutes in.
Team Freedom struggling under the insane amount of damage from Tempo Storm. The control, the pulls of Drag, Groundbreaker, and Chains of Kel'Thuzad. There goes the chains, the root, Shadowfish will be there too. Goodbye.
Such a ridiculous combo there, and you even saw it force the timeout onto Chromie, and someone was like, you aren't even the prime target, I'm going for the support there. Another combo lands onto Nasmus, he's dead. The flip from Fury is focusing now onto Dansky. Tempo Storm seem to be backing out. Shadow Fisher procs, takes about 50% there. June.
Into the freight on top of Dansky. Does give a slow.
Had to drop the Ancestral because, oh man, I wonder if that's going to be a problem here. We'll see what we see Tempo Storm pick up at level 20 with that Shadow Fissure reset, and if they go into that direction, like that last fight, for instance, do you have to drop an Ancestral like that against a Kel'Thuzad because of his level 20 upgrades? Like the way that makes your support have to burn resources because of how constant the threat is, and you know, if mobility has already been a common element within the current meta, it's only going to increase greater so if Kel'Thuzad is on the other side of the table, based on that specific spell, right? Also, I don't know if you played the synergy yet, but post 20, if you get that with Abathur slow mines, it's pretty much just reset on reset. Anywhere on the map, somebody touches a mine, and it's just throw as many Shadow Fissures as you can.
Well, I'm dead. I touched a mine.
It's a good time.
I strayed too far. We've got red web weavers, but this is not a great situation for web weavers for Team Freedom. This is the last chance for a fight on the same talent tier before Tempo Storm gets to 20, but with the lanes pushed so heavily in favor of Team Freedom, they have to assist these web weavers if they have any chance of taking down some structures, getting some of the comeback experience, some of the experience that's in the bank by not taking down any forts of Tempo Storm.
They're going to focus on top. How much can they make happen here? Because we know bottom is going to do nothing. So will middle, not only because Dahak is clearing, because of the catapult. So this is the only web weaver that really matters here for Team Freedom.
62 stacks on Sandblast. That helps,
night.
but that does not help.
Kel'Thuzad, one chain combo, one Shadow Fissure, and that is one dead JoJo. No indestructible available. Cattle unable to hit that drag. There's the slow on Nasmus. It's timeout, and it is just going to stall his inevitable death here. Good pull and taunt coming out from Fury.
Yeah, I love seeing that Tempo Storm just heads on for other kills because they are so certain that Chromie will go down there. Ancestral Healing keeps Dansky alive for a moment only. As 1, 2, 3, 4 of Team Freedom are gone, only Kier's Rhaegar remains with a 20-16 level lead, 21 kills to 2. Looks like it's not going to be the quick 3-0 that maybe Team Freedom were hoping for, Dread.
Yeah, now we got to start asking ourselves, does that mean they got rid of the Zod, or do they not even care? When you hit combos like that, I'm telling you, you got to care. That was just disgusting. Sawman on the Kel'Thuzad is a beast. 22-2, Tempo Storm finds a situation where we're going to be 1-1 in this series. When it comes to overall damage, though, he's sitting at about, only about 7,000 to 8,000 higher than everybody else. So he is the initiator, but not the sole damage source here for Tempo Storm.
No, but behind that, I mean, Vala was untouched. You have the strong front line up in front. It's all about the control, and Kel'Thuzad gives even more to that besides Garrosh and Dahaka. You've got Kel'Thuzad combos. What seemed like just constantly there. Nobody was safe. Johanna was blown up. Everybody was blown up. Chromie time outed, and it was like, I'm sad I did this now. There's no way you're going to get out of that.
Yeah, so one of the bit is the struggles of Chromie in general, right? Is kind of that is the trade-off of her as a hero, even with the timeout. The only spell, or the only talent at that tier that can really change that outcome is bye-bye, but then you lose the fight, right? So it's just kind of a downside there, and we saw the Chromie versus Kel'Thuzad. It was very lopsided towards the Kel'Thuzad. I don't think that that's going to be the case always going forward. I feel like a lot of that was just, honestly, maybe not expecting the Kel'Thuzad, but more importantly, just maybe not respecting how to play around it. It's not so much the expectation, it was how they played it. Again, if you play against the Kel'Thuzad, you need to try and find a way to minimize the laning situation to be optimal for him. Anytime he's kind of in like a, I have to be here and wave clear this one angle, he's just like, well, there goes all my blight stacks. And the fact that it was like, I think it was 7 to 8 minutes for a 30 stack blight is, at a professional level, I say unrealistic, right? It should not be okay.
Yeah, the big deal of being able to have Garrosh to get a lot of picks that decentivized the rest of the members of Team Freedom from being able to maybe get picks on Kel'Thuzad, slow that down in some respect, and then allowing Kel'Thuzad to get stacks from that and combo off for some kills was, it did feel early on like this will be a problem. Like this is a problematic game for Freedom where they might just lose it really fast, and that is what happened. That's how important Blight is to Kel'Thuzad.
I mean, it's legitimately 75% damage off of like, I mean,